Uh, okay. Hi, Jim. Hi, Christine.
Hello.
Hi, Richard.
I think we're expecting another 3 or 4. Here we go.
It's going to be happening soon. We are well on with it, but I've still not heard back, as in they've not been onboarded. But it is be a go.
Okay, I think we're all here. I think that's all of us. Right, I'm going to just open this, the document we're going to be using. And then I'll share my screen. There we go. Right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so pretty straightforward. We've got a list of questions, about 30 questions, and we have to assign who is responsible for supplying that information. Okay, so the first one is, what type of door is it? Who's responsible for supplying that information?
Designer.
Designer. Anybody else would be responsible for that?
Well, there's performance requirements by the fire engineer, and then the designer, yeah,
Design.
specifies it. So,
Yeah. Anybody else? What about the supplier? No.
yeah, the supplier would that would be through consultation with the supplier, wouldn't it? Yeah.
So we shall put the supplier as well.
Yeah, I mean they don't have. I mean, in legal terms, they don't have responsibility, but definitely the architect would consult, wouldn't they? We'd all probably agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What about the age of the door, manufacture date, installation date? Who would be responsible for supplying that information?
Supplier.
Supplier.
Trade contractor.
Trade contractor. Is that it?
I suppose as the door is transitioning through the Reba stages, different people are responsible for it. So the operator is responsible for it when it's in use. What they do with that data is up to them.
Yeah, in terms of the actual manufacture date, installation date, who would be responsible for actually supplying that?
The supplier. It's part of the golden thread, so it should be the supplier.
Okay, and the trade contractor, are we agreeing on that?
Would the main contractor not have a responsibility in that as well?
The main contractor.
No, it's the supplier's sole responsibility to ensure that that door is fitted correctly and that information is captured. It's not the main contractors or the trade contractors. Otherwise, it's not compliant.
But the supplier only supplies the door; they don't install it.
But it's about it's capturing the manufacturing date and the manufacture date and the installation date. The supplier would the supplier capture the installation date, or would that be the trade contractor
It
installer?
depends. Well, you have your trade contractors. You're probably a subcontractor. So unless it's a full supply and fit, then yeah, it would be the trade contractor as well.
I mean,
Okay, cool.
arguably, the supplier doesn't actually do the manufacture date either. It'd be the manufacturer.
In this instance, do we assume that the trade contractor is a trained and accredited installer of the suppliers? Otherwise, we could be all day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. We've got to, yeah. Okay, let's look. Excuse me. Right. What about who would be responsible for supplying the information on the door's likely frequency of use?
That would be the client and the designer, wouldn't it? Because that'd be FM and designer related, wouldn't it?
Anybody disagree with that or want to add to that?
No.
Okay. What about supplying the information on the nature of its day-to-day operation?
Designer.
Designer.
So next one, I assume is designer as well, isn't it? And designer.
What is the door location, including XYZ coordinates? That would be design, wouldn't it?
Yep, same with the 9 and 10, isn't it? Maybe
What is the door
client.
relation to other spaces? What is the door number? That would be designer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all agreed on that? Excellent. Right. Are the fire doors clearly marked as such on both sides? So who would be responsible for making sure, or for ensuring that we know that they are clearly marked?
No, fire doors only identified on the hinge side of the door with data tags that ensure its compliance.
So it'd be the trade contractor, wouldn't it? But it'd be off the basis of fire strategy and compartmentation drawings by the designer. So it's a trade contractor for the final stickers, isn't it, and things like that.
Oh, sorry. So you're not referring to the fact that the door is clearly marked. You're referring to the fact that the plans are clearly marked to identify it as a fire door.
No, I think you're correct in what, if I'm reading that rightly. Are the fire doors clearly
well,
marked? I think it's as installed, is it not?
It looks like it means that, doesn't it? Because it's saying to avoid referring to the fire plan, so it would need to be marked that the actual door itself, wouldn't it?
It's part of that snag, isn't it? You're checking for the stickers.
Yeah, so you have two tags that identify it as a fire door, but you can only see that once the door is opened. You can't see it from the outside. It's on the actual the face of the door.
Right. Okay. And who would be responsible?
So the manufacturer pops a tag in to show that it's been produced by a Q marked manufacturer, and then the installer pops a tag in which basically says it's been installed correctly, etc., etc.
Right. So who would be responsible for making sure that we capture that information?
I would say probably your main contractor, but that along with whoever has installed it. Again, it goes back, Richard, to the golden thread that we were talking about before. So it's data capture.
Well, I think you're right. It's both, isn't it? So the trade contractor needs to do fix, but then the main contractor should have some whole points in place to check that that's been done from a sign-off point of view.
Yeah, surely they have a duty of care with every aspect of the building to ensure that it's been built to the specification of the designer.
Yeah, so you could argue in every item along here, the main contractor, if it's a D&B style contract, would have a tick. So check their designer's done X or all of these items.
I'd agree with that, because where you've got sort of door number and location, you actually have to check that door has been put in a particular door types in a particular place.
Richard, you're on mute.
I think, Richard, no one can hear you. For some reason, you're very quiet. No.
No, you're on mute, Richard.
I've just popped in just to
There
see
you go.
if everything's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing fine. My mic just went off. Yeah, we're doing fine. We're on question 13.
Good. Okay, I'll leave you to it. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. It's as I say, let me share it again. I'm having trouble with my microphone. Okay, so we're on right. Question 12. What is the tenure status of the resident? Who would be responsible for capturing that information?
Designer and the client, won't it? Because it's
Designer and client. Anyone disagree with it?
No, that's good.
Okay, good, very good. Right, 13. In terms of the specification.
Sorry, there's a lot of these answers here that I think you could tick a number of boxes. You know, I think somebody just said it as regard the main contractor. If it's a design and builds, I think you'd be ticking a lot more than we've currently ticked there. But you know, I just want to get my own head. Why would that last question be the designer? You know, whether somebody is a leaseholder or a housing association or council tenant, the designer really get involved with that?
I've seen on sort of some floor plans where they sort of allocate what they intend those units to be used for, whether it's shared ownership or leaseholders or things like that. So
there's different design requirements, isn't there? If you've got HA and stuff like that, you need to actually conform, whereas private sale doesn't. So they normally in the design will have to state which is which.
yeah, it's part of their planning application. They'll be involved in that process, won't it? Even if they're dictated which units are what.
There's more a situation where you've got a building where it's sort of split, so half of it is sold to private buyers and half of it is tenants. Is that sort of scenario, is it?
Yeah, but the architect would dictate if it's the architect would work with the client and the requirements for planning, won't they, to allocate that on the design, won't they? You'd have quite strict planning requirements if it was a PRS to private sale to social rent, won't you? It will all be part of the original planning.
It's even the different sort of materials they use for each unit as well. So I've seen the different types of flooring depending on whether it's gold, silver, or bronze or whatever.
It's still right that for this exercise, though, it's client designer, isn't it? It's dictating the brief, isn't it?
Yeah, let's leave that as it is. Look at question 14. 14 specification. Is there any certification of manufacturing by UCAS accredited body to provide assurance that what was tested is what is being used?
So manufacturer and supplier.
Yeah.
But that should be checked by all, shouldn't it? So it's not. I suppose that's not the question. Is it? That probably comes later, doesn't it?
So it would be manufacturing and supplier checking that the door is manufactured by UCAS. That would be the supplier, would it?
Well, they'd be providing. They need to have done the testing on their product, don't they? And then the installer needs to check.
Wouldn't somebody involved in the actual build of the thing be responsible to make sure that what is being supplied is correct?
That's not what the question asks. I guess that's what I kind of jumped to the same conclusion. Like that.
It just says,
for example, we main
is there any certification?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
And the architect shouldn't be putting in their specifications a product that hasn't got that in the first instance. But that's not the question, is it? I guess.
Sure. Okay. Right. Is there a global assessor by UCAS accredited body, but not in the test report? Who would be responsible for that? Whatever that even means.
Same to the supplier.
Okay. Is there a test report to confirm fire resistance performance?
It's the supplier.
Same. It's the same.
So is that again
a lot of these are going to be the same. A lot of these are going to be the same for the up and coming one.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
They're all the same.
I think they're all going to
They're
be
all
the
gonna
same
do that.
for the specification.
I would
think-
say every single one of 13 through to 18, 19, 20, 21. They all conform
They're all-
as part
it all
as
comes
part
down
as
to
part
that.
of the same test. You have to test.
Yeah.
It's not, there's no desktop studies anymore. Everything has to be identified and tested.
So I guess the question though is quite pertinent earlier, isn't it? Is that who's supposed to check it? Like if an architect specifies an asset abloy door or something. I mean, I've got an instance where they specified a silo door with a clay render on it, for example, as a 120 minutes door. You know, who in their specification they should be checking that the art of the possible, isn't it? I guess that's the leading question that's maybe not missing here, isn't it?
I mean, it's even when you look at those Kobe sheets. So if you get a Kobe sheet from an architect, they won't have a lot of the information because they know what they want in there for the design. But until it's actually built, you can't. There's lots of pieces of information that you don't know, or lots of data that
Exactly,
you
yeah.
don't know.
And,
Yeah.
and that's the difficulty of going into contract with that without that level of detail, isn't it? To know that if you could deliver the ER in the first instance, let's say.
Right, okay, so we're saying manufacturer and supplier right down to what question?
So 23, 24 is the same. 25 is the same. Right. I mean, all of those again from 25 down to
38.
yeah, they're all form part of the test.
They're all part and parcel, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's different information, but at the same time. Right, okay.
I've got a question. If so you've got a particular view of which standards you need to match it up to, but if sort of 10 years down the road you've got a different standard which you need to apply to fire doors,
Yeah.
what would you say need, or do you just need an extra question to say if they're new standards, because the client's going to have to make sure that things conform? I don't know.
But that's where you've got if it's tested to EN 1634, that's the highest standard you can kind of get at the moment. So if something comes out, again, it's about data capture. You would then refer back to that door, and if the government then says that door is no longer fit for purpose and it needs to be the next standard that comes out, then all of those doors will need to be taken out and retrospectively changed.
Right, yeah.
There's not much else you can do. You
wouldn't know, quite. Okay, so in terms of materials, my guess is that's going to be the same, isn't it?
But why do they need to know that? Why would anybody need to know? Because if the door's been tested and passed, it's fit for purpose.
Yeah, it's just about the veneer on the outside, isn't it? It's about the aesthetics then, and its security and links to the BMS is all that the other designers want to know, or the client.
But it will all be as part of the door's testing. It will have a Pass 24 certificate and a fire test certificate. So it doesn't matter whether it's phenolic foam in the middle or whether it's a solid timber core door. It will still have a Pass 24 certificate and a fire certificate. And you'll specify either timber or GRP at the start. So
okay,
you know.
I'll tell you what. Let's hold that question, and then we can ask George about that once we finish this. When we go back into the main meeting, because that's a question that keeps coming up. Why do we need all this information? And I think he's the best person to answer that. That's okay.
I mean, essentially, some of these could be led by the designer and completed by the supplier, isn't it? And the installer.
So in terms of materials, from question 40 to 50.
again, I suppose it depends if you want that information so you can replace with a like-for-like product. But
I guess some of that though isn't just about the door, is it? So you have obviously door schedules, so you can coordinate the job to make sure that the wall that the door sits in equally is the right type of wall and size and shape, isn't it?
Yeah,
But all this
absolutely.
information in terms of material will be in that testing evidence though. If
Yeah.
there was a primary test evidence that you receive in, then you'll have all of this information within that.
But for the benefit of this, we could just fill in, it's just going to be supplier, installer and designer, isn't it? Because some of these items, isn't it?
So what is that, subcontractor?
It's the trade contractor, wasn't it? And the
Trade
and the
contractor,
supplier would have all of this, will have all of this information, but the architect would need to provide dimensions.
The trade contractors.
Yeah.
In which column is? Right, so it's those three.
Sorry, I've just added into the chat the image that Paul Matsali provided, which is the layout of the flat. So I don't know if that helps at all. Just provides
Possibly,
a bit.
I'll tell you what you could help us with, which has just been raised. I'm not sure who raised it because I can't see except my own screen. About this, we're looking at question 40 to 48. What is the core material, the dimensions of the core, and this kind of information. And it's been said that if the fire door's been fully tested, firstly, that information will be on that test documentation. But secondly, why would you need that level of detail?
For reasons of safety, from the point of view of this door, Jim. So Jim obviously is an expert in this area, as is Elliot. We need this information for the next probably 30 or 40 years. So we don't know what we need, and these questions were things, or these were points were already raised by the previous fire group meeting. So I don't think it's helpful to necessarily challenge any of them. The question is just if that information is, somebody requires it, then where is it best provided from? What would you say, Elliot?
Again, you don't. It depends what it's for. So if it's for a complete replacement, then you refer back to the architect's plans, so you know the dimension size. But every door should, in essence, if it's being replaced, be surveyed and made to fit, and a bespoke door made. From the actual makeup of the door itself, you don't need that information, because if your door has passed your fire certification and your past 24 accreditation, then it's fit for purpose. So all you should be checking is that door past 24 accredited and also fire tested. If it is, then you don't. For me, it's almost overkill, some of these questions.
Well, I think the point is what we've come across by having these sessions, Elliot, is some people will be asking for this information, and therefore if some people are asking for it, we should be providing it. It doesn't really matter if 90% of the people don't need it, because they don't see it, if that makes sense, because the technology allows us to strip all that out.
I'm slightly between both Elliot's comments and yours there, George. You know, every question that is on the screen there at the moment are questions we've been asked over the last 5 or 6 years, and obviously everybody wants the detail. So I agree that Elliot, as he says, it is overkill, but that's the world we're in now. So, you know, all these questions, as I say, we've been having to give answers for them. So we've got all our answers ready for all of these, because we're getting them asked them on a regular basis. So the whole idea of BIM, as I see it, is if this information is there at an early stage, then we won't be inundated with various phone calls. The information will be there.
Yeah.
How we do it is, you know, a little bit beyond my level at the moment, but yeah, I think somewhere between the two. So sitting on the fence, but slightly more moving towards the answers need to be there. And I'm sure Elliot's had the same. Yes, it's overkill, but you'll be asked lots of questions that will be overkill.
I guess where George has talked about his templater before. So if you want to know what a door's made up of, the manufacturer would provide it. So if you are then going to say, I have this door, then you'd go and look at the manufacturer's specifications if you know what precise door you've got in that building. So but then you'd go away and have it. You wouldn't want to necessarily store it in your systems, I guess.
The dangerous thing is, as you saw there, Forza have got a great document. I've seen it. It's almost too much information, and one question then leads to 101 that people don't necessarily understand the answers. So it's trying to get that right level, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the important thing, as Christine said there, we've got the technology now to be able to hold all of that information, but then present it back in a very simple way for anybody that wants to consume it. The other thing is, Elliot, that when we're collecting this information, we don't want it only to be related to fire. The big thing is embodied carbon, and there's a whole range of different things coming down the line, isn't there? And therefore, if we can collect the information in a standardized way, it means that, you know, Jim, for example, can put it together once, and then it can be used many times for different purposes.
Yep, I agree with everything that's been said. My only kind of pushback with that is that we would potentially fill out for this this building the dimensions, the core of the slab, the lipping, etc. But there's no reason why, if that door is damaged in any way, shape, or form, it couldn't be replaced with a timber version. And then that's completely irrelevant what you've just put in at the front, because all you're doing is fitting an equivalent product which is made from something completely different, which is still fully compliant. So by putting all the information in at the front, yes, if you wanted to do a like-for-like replacement, but there's nothing in the regulations that says it has to be like for like. All it needs to be is compliant with the fire regulations for that building.
Sure. Okay. Should we move?
Well, for the purpose of this exercise, we're working on the basis that we need to know the birth date of the installer as well. So we're going to just dig very deep. So in the construction section, question 52. Right, who's on?
Sorry, Richard. Christine's got a question.
Yeah, it's only sort of with the tick boxes we've got here. I think there's a slight nuance missing. It's who can almost provide the information. So for the materials, you'd expect the manufacturer would be able to provide it, but it's another matter of whether you need to actually use that information or not. So if you know the manufacturer can provide that information, you'd want to be able to look it up, for instance.
Yeah.
But until the point is that you need it, you won't have to do it. And the trouble is, it's when you need it, then you don't know where to look. So that's a nuance, really, I guess.
Okay, good. Richard, you've gone on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got this problem with my microphone. Yeah, well, this is why we say about machine readable data, isn't it? That it doesn't matter how much data we've got there. You haven't got to see anything more than you want to see. But at least if it's there, you can get it, can't you?
I think you're sharing the wrong screen, Richard, or somebody is.
Yeah, that's because I've just come back on. Hold on.
Yeah.
Have we got the?
No.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
No.
It's gone again now.
Right, have you got it now?
Not yet.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, cool. Right, so question 52. Was it supplied as one unit? Was the full door set produced, tested, product certification, test data? Okay, so I'm going to, right, so I think this, along with, look through those questions on the actual construction, talking about gap tolerances, fixing the frame to the wall, all this information. This information has got to come from the manufacturer, surely.
No, I would have said it's the installer. What do you think, Jim?
I think that it's a hard one. The questions are so, I don't know, open. You know, it could be down to the who's done the surveying. Is it the installer? Is it the door manufacturer?
We can change the questions.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think when you're looking at the tolerances, well, that to me would be the person who's carried out the survey and taken measurements. There's a lot of door manufacturers that don't carry out that aspect of the work. So, as somebody just said there, that's the installer. Yeah,
I think let's assume here, Jim, that this isn't a replacement. This is a new build. Let's take it that it's a new build. And I know you don't do that many new builds, but if we take it from a construction perspective, then from that context, does that make it easier?
Yeah, it would be installer.
Yeah, it would be the. So there's a lot. I keep going back to the main contractor. If there's again, probably because from a design and build aspect, to me, that would be the main contractor's responsibility to be able to say the structural opening size of this size, the door needs to be what size, and working with the manufacturer to make sure that the opening size are correct to what the manufacturer size is going to be.
But they'd be reliant on originally that's why I employed the designer, isn't it? You innovate it over the designer to establish the intent, and then it's about then site surveying, structure, making sure that the other adjacent trade contractors are within tolerance, isn't it? But in principle, the main contractor is responsible overall, but they've got the other stakeholders or employees like the innovative consultants and the trade contractors on their own appointments and contracts to deliver that information, isn't it?
Yeah, my view on it, sorry to cut across you, but I think my view on it is that who's able to provide this information rather than who's contractually responsible.
So
if the designer starts it, the let's say you have concrete, or you'd have site surveys of the adjacent walls, wouldn't you, then to confirm the door schedules.
But it's not that,
and that would be fed to the supplier and the installer of the doors, wouldn't it?
I think with the clarification George just said, I would say if you're going to take the comment he's just made, I'd say it's the manufacturer.
Well, they'll need to site survey, won't they, as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's for these questions specifically in terms of gap tolerances between frame and structural opening, etc., I would say it's the installer, in my opinion, because they're the one installing it, or the contractor who's the main contractor seeing it.
Sorry, if we look at question 55, it says, are there full and unambiguous installation instructions covering the following?
Well,
that's the manufacturer. That's the manufacturer, because that is the test evidence that door has passed to, which will give you the gap tolerances for all of the above. The fixing to the frame walls, so you'll have solid. You might have no fines. You might have concrete block. You could have lots of different.
Elliot, you're absolutely right, and in fact, actually, that's a really good point. And the installation section, which is the next one down, is really what I was talking about. So, Elliot, good catch.
Yeah. So we're saying now that the construction section is manufacturer.
All of those questions in the construction question, I would say, manufacturer. Would you agree, Elliot?
Oh, who said that at the beginning?
So 52 could be the installer, because we don't know whether it was supplied as one unit, because you could still supply it as 2 units or whatever. And the QMark plug was probably the main contractor or installer, because they'll want to check that. Adequate signage.
Sorry, tell me that which 2 again. I'm putting the contractor in.
The
QMark plug.
The contractor should be, or subcontractor or main contractor should be QMark plug and adequate signage, because ultimately that will be something that you assess after the install. Was it supplied as 1 unit? That should be really the installer. And then, are there full and ambiguous sensors covering the following? That should be manufacturer.
Yeah, so we're taking manufacturer out of those 3, but keeping them in the rest.
Well, the manufacturer or supplier could supply that information as well, because they'll know ultimately whether they've made it as 1 unit or 2.
Okay. So if we cover about, we'll put both in then.
Yeah.
Richard, I can't see what those columns are. Are you confident that that's the manufacturer one?
This one, yeah.
Good. Okay.
I can check it, but I am.
Because you can freeze the top row if you want to.
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's manufacturer. Yeah.
That's good. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Right, wait a minute.
Do you want me to show you how to freeze it?
Yes, because I've got them in the wrong columns.
Okay. If you
no, that's everything's all right until that. It's all fine. It's just this one. Hold on a minute. I've got to move those over.
Okay. Good.
It's all fine except for this one. Okay. Right, okay, sorry about that. Right, so the installation, okay. So, was the door installed correctly, packed and sealed, and by a competent person with a third-party accreditation with evidence? Who would be responsible for supplying the information that
that's the main contractor. I think it's the main contractor in my opinion.
agree.
Yeah, main contractor.
Main contractor.
They don't, yeah, but they'd need it to be supplied by the installer, wouldn't they? So it's a 2-part thing, isn't it? So it's ultimately their responsibility to employ someone who's competent, but the information would come
Getting the information that would come from the
supplier.
installer.
So they're culpable in it, yeah, and should be checked and should be importing the right people. But yeah,
the problem here is as well. It's not legislation at the moment that somebody is actually accredited to fit a fire door.
Would it be the installer who gives this information then? They was done by a competent person? Because the next question is about BIM trial, etc., etc. Look.
it's a valid point, but ultimately, as a competent contractor, they should be asking for that. But it should be noted that that's not currently.
Sure, it's not a
It should be. Same with you wouldn't have a.
Well, it is. It's a massive loophole and something that needs closing pretty quickly. And
yeah,
I think in everybody's eyes.
Okay, so right. So the next one, what kind of certification for competence?
There's none at the moment, unfortunately. There should be, and people can be obviously Q-marked, BM Trada, FIRAS. But again, it's not legislation at the moment. So as long as that door is fitted to the tolerances above, then it can be signed off.
So I think a lot of the time in the specifications from the architect, certainly the ones that we get, that it would ask for that level, that accreditation. So in this instance, we can So on the basis that this has been included in the specification, who would apply it? So the request.
From our BIM4Housing work and the workshops we've run, we've not actually always come from a position where it's got to be legislated for. We've come from a position, what's the best practice that we consider would be the best way of operating, which is why that question's in there, because we believe that there should be a third party, some sort of third party accreditation. So that being the case, who would be responsible for ensuring that that was the case? Who would have responsibility to provide
main contractor? Main contractor.
Main contractor.
Designer,
I think
client.
I think about the client as well. Yeah, I agree with Jim. I think about the client, because if we give it in our employees requirements, we would say that we want one of these.
So that employees requirement would be put together by the designer. So you could say client, designer,
and main contractor.
Main contractor, and
Installer.
yeah, installer. They're all responsible. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Is there any installation training, manufacturing training, and/or toolbox talk, whatever that is? Who would be responsible for that?
Well, that would be main contractor and installer.
Yeah.
Installation.
Photos of installation. That would be obviously or making sure there are photos of the installation.
It's, again, a main contractor and installer, because the main contractor should be insisting where that's stored and.
Yeah. What about quality checklists?
Richard, the trade contractor on the one above as well.
Sorry, missed that one.
Yeah.
But sorry, the installation training, that again, it's the manufacturer, because the manufacturer sets.
Oh, manufacturing, absolutely.
Well, the manufacturer sets the installation guideline for that door. It has to be installed in a certain way. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
A quality checklist. I think that's the same, isn't it? Main contractor and trade contractor, Richard.
Okay, so third-party inspection records.
I think that's that one. And I think we've also got a section on commissioners, haven't we?
Coming at the bottom, lower down, we've got loads of questions on this.
No, we've got a row. We've got a column for
commissioning. Yeah,
it's column I.
Yeah, and so this would be I, would it, George?
Yes.
Okay. Are there as-built drawings showing the fire strategy drawings indicating the fire performance?
Sorry, main contractor as well, I would say.
Okay, as-built drawings showing fire strategy. Who would be responsible for supplying those?
Well, yeah, is that the right question though? Are there any as-built drawings showing? Well, they should have installed as per the fire strategy, and if they haven't, obviously that needed to be picked up. But the as-built, they wouldn't be as-built drawings. The architect would provide the last construction set of record drawings, which should be representative of the build. But you know, that question is probably slightly wrong, isn't it? We don't get as-builts from the compartmentation drawings anymore. There'd be record drawings.
Right. Yes. So do I want to make an amendment to this question?
Yeah. So say like, are there any? Yeah, there should be the final record drawings aligned with the installation, I guess is the question, is it? Is that what?
Are there final record drawings aligned with the installation?
Just the final compartmentation record drawings aligned with the site installation, yeah. So I would roughly say.
Sorry, are there, right, dictate it to me slowly.
Sorry. Are the final record drawings showing the compartmentation strategy, the fire compartmentation strategy, sorry. Strategy, yeah. aligned with the install.
Richard, you've got another couple of minutes. I'm going to go back into the main one to be ready for people.
All right, mate.
Cheers.
Just missed R out of compartmentation, but it doesn't really matter for an hour, I guess.
Oh, what's that?
It's easy for me to do. I hate typing in front of other people.
Oh, why is it doing that?
Maybe too many. They might have limited the number of.
Put a space.
Mm.
Why don't you? Oh, wait, it's got that at the front. I have to get that. Okay, sorry. Right, what is the project model, batch number, etc., unique information to obtain replacement? Who will be responsible for that?
Manufacturer.
And the main contractor manages the O&Ms, doesn't it, as well?
So sorry, who is this? The manufacturer
And main contractor.
Yeah.
Okay, and the one above that we've just rewritten, who's responsible for that then? Final record drawing.
Well, it's a combination of the designer and the main contractor and the installer, isn't it, to make sure that they've all aligned.
Designer? No, that's not the designer.
You've put the client, but if you put the designer, the main contractor, and the installer, they should all be making sure that they're all aligned with the latest set of compartmentation drawing.
Right, okay. Is there any evidence of training provided to customer attendance records, ideally a video?
Training for what? The install, the manufacturer, the...
No idea.
We wouldn't do training videos.
Should I put question marks on that?
Yeah.
So I don't know what it means. Yeah. Okay. Are there any? Oh, this is driving. Right. Are there any details of automation that's been added to the doors? Like hold open magnets.
They shouldn't.
Right.
Well, that would be on the architect's door schedule, wouldn't it?
This is talking about stuff that's been added after installation, isn't it? Or added post.
But that would be the requirements of it would be on the door schedule. So those details.
Right, I see what you mean. So that would be designer then, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so it'd be the original intent should come from there, but then you'd equally the supplier and installer should see aligned, or whoever's fitting it, whatever.
I'm not, and this might be a question for Jim as well. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm fairly certain that most things can't be retrofitted to a door because it's doesn't fall within its field of application testing.
Yeah, correct.
So this shouldn't be occurring anyway. Is that what we're saying?
Absolutely not.
Oh yes, so the term retro. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So you should know one then. Is the answer.
I'm not
it can. Sorry, it could be added retrospectively, but only if it's still within its field of application.
So if it's been post tested and it's exactly the same door and you post tested it, you then could possibly. So like, you know, the hold open devices, you could possibly go back and retrofit them. It's quite restrictive on what you can do unless there is primary test data, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So what should I put then?
I would just put not allowed. It's
Yeah,
it's far safer to not do it than to retrofit something that could potentially have a negative impact on the performance of the door.
Yeah. Are there any further details of anything else that's been added that might be connected to fire alarms, fire systems, that might cause the fire alarms not to work? Also.
Don't know what the cause might be. Again, it's only if something's deactivated or taken off the door, which you would find hopefully in your maintenance call.
I think you can still answer these questions. They're not the best questions, but surely the answer is the manufacturer. Just always refer back to the manufacturer.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a cause and effect diagram? Who would be responsible for making of supplying a cause and effect diagram?
Well, that relates to the BMS, doesn't it? So that would be part of the commissioning, won't it?
Commissioning.
Yeah. So that would be. Is there a separate?
What about the warranty information? Who would be responsible for ensuring that we've got that, or who'd be responsible for supplying that? That would be the manufacturer.
Yeah, manufacturer and main contractor, I would think.
The cause and effect also needs input from the designer because it will be on the basis of the compartmentation strategy as well, won't it? And the fire strategy.
Okay, is there inspection? Right, wait a minute.
Do we have to go back into the forum?
We need to go to the other meeting, don't we? Yeah. Okay, I've got this. Thank you very much. We've done very well because we've had more questions than anybody else. We were picked on. I'll see you in the other meeting.